start, and then if anyone else comes in, they can help themselves, or if you guys want
Yeah.
to get up and get some coffee or
get some
pastries
food?
in between, you're welcome to.
Well, thanks for having us.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, Charlinda invited me to come along. I'm Liz. I'm from Alpine Home Care. I'm over in the Bala-Cynwyd area, but we cover all the regions, which is great. And we do private home care at the home or wherever you reside. And we do the same services as others, but we stand out a little bit more where we can do skilled care. So we can do companion care to skilled care at the home. And we always have 2 nurses on staff 24/7, which is great because a lot of people don't have that option. And we also have the nurses go out and do all the assessments. Sometimes places send out marketers like myself, but I do not have the eye for what everyone needs, so we have our nurse go out to do the assessment, which is great. We always have staffing, which is also positive, and if there's ever a call out, we actually have people on backup for that. So we've never had an issue in 8 years for someone not showing up. So if you have any questions, let me know, but I also have my information over there with my card.
Staffing is the biggest challenge.
And you know, we have so much staffing, just because we're connected to the hospitals, so I think our staffing just kept getting better and better because we had so many.
I can't hear a thing.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
that's the benefit. But yeah, that's me. I'm Liz. There you go. Yeah.
So, and I'm Charlinda. So I am a licensed occupational therapist and realtor. So I kind of work in the housing industry when it comes to creating safe spaces that you can stay in for the long run. So that's always the goal. And I think for a lot of people, that's ultimately what they envision when they move into their house, is that it's the place they're going to be. They don't really picture, when am I going to move out, or how's that going to look. So what we're going to cover today is looking at when you should start looking at preparing your home and how to. Signs that maybe, to consider, signs and symptoms that maybe it's time to consider making some provisions in your home or modifications to your home if it's your goal to stay there. Types and ways that you can optimize your home. So I'll kind of get into that a little bit more. Different things to consider, and then I also go over some tips, tricks, or ideas that will make your life a little bit easier in your home as well. So hopefully that will be of interest, and easy things that you can apply that are low cost as well. So this is just a little bit about me. That's me, my husband, and we just had a little girl 9 weeks ago. So
Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, so we're still figuring out the parenting thing. That's our first baby. I graduated from Thomas Jefferson in occupational therapy, and then I also got my realtor's license as well. So I've been kind of living in between that line of like helping people find their best home and then also fitting their best home. So kind of helping, yeah.
Excuse me for the interruption from my phone. It pops up. I don't know how to stop it. I've been calling T-Mobile. I've been trying to turn it off.
Put it back there, maybe.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I understand. I'm not great with technology either, so when something goes wrong, I'm usually looking to somebody else to help me, and if they're not there to help me,
But it's
I'm up a creek.
It may continue. I apologize. For
That's
that.
okay. I will not take that as any indication of disinterest. So yeah, I've been working as a certified home modification specialist then, and I got certifications in that. And then also kind of working with people with aging in place. Sometimes I've also worked in some commercial spaces as well as a consultant to kind of talk through maybe ways to make some stores or public spaces a little bit more accessible or practical for people. I mean, we've all been in places where it's hard to get in, or it's hard to access bathrooms, or the setup just doesn't really make sense. And a lot of times it's just because people who design the spaces don't necessarily think like we think. So things, or when you should consider a home optimization consultation, there's a couple key, I guess, life stages or places when it might be best to fit this in. So if you're planning on a renovation for your home, let's say you want to redo your kitchen or you want to update a space in your home, those are great times to consider looking at how you can fit this space space when you're already doing renovations, doing some practical changes to make it easier for you through all of your life stages. So sometimes it's simple things like changing the countertop heights or thinking about how you're going to do lighting so that it's easier for you as you might have visual changes down the road. Sometimes it's considering the flooring type that you're using. Maybe there's less glare or anti-slip flooring that you can implement that you're already putting the new flooring in. So just considering some of those details will save you a lot of money and time in the long run and a lot of hassle if you're already doing a renovation. Another key time would be when you're planning to retire. So you start thinking about where are you going to age and what is your goal. So if you want to be at your home, if you want to downsize, excuse me, or if you're planning to move into a more communal space, those are times to be considering, if I do want to stay home or if I do want to downsize, what am I looking for and how is that space going to fit my goals and what I want to be able to do as I retire and move into a new phase of life. Because just because you retire doesn't mean you're less active, right? So you just have to be thinking about what your lifestyle is and what would fit you. Then you're looking at, as you're aging, you begin to notice physical changes. That's also a time to consider some home modifications. Sometimes even early on, if you've just had a recent diagnosis, it's a great time to talk to someone like a home modification specialist and talk through maybe what are some of those symptoms that you might experience in the future and how you can set your home up now so that you can prevent future injuries or future challenges and your home can kind of adapt to those changes a little bit better for you. And then also another indication might be if you've fallen more than once in the last year or so. Sometimes that's indicative of some sort of balance challenge, and some of the changes that you can make in your home might help with that as well. So this kind of sounds a little bit gloom and doom, and it's not meant to, but overall what this is really saying is that when someone falls, a lot of times what we see is that it triggers other complications, other health complications, and it kind of tends to be one of those events that can create a downward spiral that you just don't want. So once you're in the hospital, sometimes you have blood sugar spikes or people end up with other challenges, infections, things like that, and it starts to pay a toll on your body. And so as those complications happen, it makes it harder to make that recovery and to get back to where you were before. So the best medicine is just prevention. And a lot of the studies that they've done with the CDC and other studies have found that if you can prevent falls, it actually increases the length of your life, the health and the quality of your life, just by being a little extra careful and preventing those falls, because it's also preventing other complications. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. My voice doesn't always carry very well, so I just wanted to make sure. So when you're thinking about planning for your home, there's often, two different ways that this can go. One is preventative, and that often makes just a overall better experience for you. If you're thinking about your future, and you're thinking about, the fact that we all go through changes in life, how can I create a space that's going to create some flexibility and some safeguards for me as my life changes? It will allow you, one, to be able to stay in your home longer, to be able to continue doing all of the things that you want and need to be able to do in your home better, more safely, and more effectively. And that thoughtful decision-making process allows you to execute changes that might happen in your life in a more controlled way so that you're at the driver's seat when those changes happen. Oftentimes, it's hard for people to think this way. And so what ends up happening is you kind of just, it's kind of our nature. We just want to push off those changes and that thought process, and we don't really want to think about the future too much. And so what ends up happening is an unplanned event occurs, And then emergent decision making is happening. So you're making decisions in emergencies, or worse yet, your kids or a power of attorney or somebody else is making those decisions for you. And that often ends up resulting in outcomes that aren't necessarily what you had envisioned for your life in the long run, and makes adapting to those changes a little bit harder. So a lot of times, when they say prevention is the best medicine, or an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, it's very true in this case, in this scenario, is that if you're thinking a little bit more proactively about how you want your retirement, your future life and the next years down the road to look, what you want to be able to do and how you want that to play out, we can help tailor that home to those needs and create a better outcome for you overall, so that you're in control as those changes happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of clients who feel very salty about decisions that their kids or someone else might have made for them, and they just weren't planning on it, and it happened so quickly. And they're like trying to get their heads wrapped around it, because these changes happened so unexpectedly and there wasn't really a plan in place for them. So even though our family members do the best that they can for us, sometimes it's not always exactly what we wished it would have been. This is just kind of a quote that resides with me, and the thought that, it's paradoxical that the idea of living a long life appeals to everyone, but the idea of getting old appeals to no one. And I think it's true, we just don't want to think about that part of it, and how life changes, and yet we all want to live a rich life and we want to continue doing what we're doing. So that's the goal here. So I did set on your seats a little questionnaire talking about the risk for falls, and it's just an easy way. It was actually created by the CDC as an easy way to assess if you may have some risk factors for falls. Falls are not the be-all, end-all in determining your needs or your future, but it is kind of good just to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on, and kind of be thinking about some ways that maybe you might want to be more careful about. So for example, there's one that talks about medications. One factor is if you take 10 or more medications, they do consider you at a higher risk for falls. And we might not think about that as being a complication. I mean, we all take blood pressure medications and maybe something to sleep at night, but the more medications you have, sometimes they can interact or have different side effects that will put you at risk more. For example, you might have a little bit more lightheadedness or dizziness, or sometimes medications can impact your sensation a little bit, or your reactionary times. So if your reactionary time is a little bit slower, it's harder to catch yourself if you were to lose your balance, things like that. And so even though we don't necessarily think about it, it's just something to be aware of. So there's a couple good questions or good points in here, and then it talks about why it matters, as far as what that's indicative of. So one is, if you have to rush to the bathroom often, so maybe you don't realize that you have to go, and then all of a sudden you have some emergency needs. Obviously, anytime we rush anywhere, we oftentimes, things just don't go right for us. If I rush to put my makeup on, it usually does not look good at the end. If I'm rushing in the car, usually I end up having more occurrences in driving. And it's no different with our balance and our movement and our safety. If we're rushing all of the time, then chances are, something may happen at some point, and it's just something to be aware of. Because if you're aware of it, you're going to be paying attention, and then you're going to be able to kind of fix that or remediate that better just by being aware of it, being conscious. So you guys can look through that at your own time. I don't need to necessarily read through that for you. But there are some other factors besides just when you think balance that do contribute. Like I said, medications. If you have neuropathy or numbness in your feet, that also can lead to more risk factors for balance issues because it's harder to feel and sense when floor surfaces change or when there might be a little bit of a slope in a floor. Or if, you're kind of coming to a threshold or an uneven surface, you may not be as conscious of that, and those things are sometimes what can cause a feeling like you're suddenly losing your balance for no reason at all. And then, with balance itself, sometimes it's muscular, and you can go to a physical therapist to get strengthening. Sometimes it's an inner ear issue or some sort of, we call it a vestibular issue that may need to be looked at as well. And sometimes, we just have slower reaction times. And those things can actually all be addressed in like a physical therapy setting as well. So this is kind of a picture of some things you can do outside of just home modifications and just modifying your home. I encourage everyone to talk to your doctor or your pharmacist because sometimes they're not always on the same page, or you might have 4 different doctors and you have one doctor prescribing, your cardiologist prescribing for heart issues, and you have a urologist prescribing for urinary issues, and you have another specialist prescribing for something else, and they don't always see the medications that you're taking that may interact with each other from another physician. So whenever you go to any of your doctors, take your medicine list with you and then be conscious to deliberately ask them, are there any medications that I can come off of? Sometimes you may even be taking a duplicate medication that you just don't need, something that your primary care prescribed you for your blood pressure, and then your cardiologist prescribed you something else for your blood pressure. And sometimes you've been on one for 8-10 years, and no one's ever really reevaluated either the dosage or the fact that maybe you don't even need it at all now, depending on, the circumstance. And so having that conversation, prompting them to look at what can go and what needs to stay is sometimes helpful, and you might be surprised at what you actually don't need to be taking, or at least lowering the dose. An occupational therapist, that's what I do. So looking at your environment from a very functional standpoint. Our goal is always just keeping you independent, keeping it practical, keeping it safe. And there's lots of tips, tricks, a million different ways you can do it. You can do it with tools. You can do it by changing your approach. You can do it by changing the environment, which is the home that we're talking about. Many different ways. None of them are cheating. If it works for you, then it works. And the most important thing is that at the end of the day, if you remain as independent as you want to be, and you don't have to be on somebody else's time waiting for them to be available to help you with something, and you're able to live your life on your own, that's a success. So how that gets done doesn't really matter at the end of the day if you can live on your own time, make your own decisions, and be successfully independent just by doing things a little bit different maybe than you used to. We talked about the doctor, and then also, friends and family, letting them check in on you, letting them do things that you don't necessarily feel comfortable doing. If in your heart of hearts you feel a little bit hesitant or unsure about something, don't feel like it's a failure to ask somebody for help. A lot of times you got to go with your gut. And if your gut tells you you don't really feel comfortable doing something, it's better to ask for help than to look back and think, darn, I wish I would have, before some complication happens. So definitely go with your gut. When it comes to home modifications, there's really 3 different types of modifications or approaches. The first is a temporary. So these are easy changes. You're looking at like changing the setup of your furniture or buying a new little gadget that you can use. Those are temporary things. You can use them, you can put them away, and they don't really have any long-term effects, and usually they're low cost. They're easy changes. We're going to go over some ideas and suggestions in the temporary category today. And then there's semi-permanent. These are things that you might install, but they're easily removed as well. One of those that I love is motion-censored lights. So you can put them up your steps or in your hallway. You can stick them on. You don't have to like hardwire them to anything. And they're just an easy way to light the way at nighttime. When you move, it turns on, and they're easily removed too. So they're something that requires some installation and a little bit of change, but they're easily removed and there's no permanent damage that's involved. So that's a semi-permanent. And then you have permanent changes. Those are when you're moving walls, you're renovating a kitchen, you're doing some of those bigger changes, and you might be changing how you do it. So you might be putting in different overhead lights, or you might be expanding a hallway, or you might be putting in a shower without a threshold. And those are permanent changes that could improve your home too. The nice thing about permanent changes is that in today's day and in the designs of today, a lot of times those changes actually increase the value of your home. I know in the past, a lot of times we've thought, oh, we don't want to make this home look sterile or look ugly, and so we don't want to install, certain things into the home. But today, there's a major shortage of accessible features in homes. There's a lot more people that need them than there are homes that have them. So it is very appealing in that sense. The other thing is that with the change in design, these features have become a lot more stylish and appealing, and the aesthetics of these changes are actually considered to be really beautiful. So when you think about, having a shower without a threshold and you can just kind of roll in or walk in, those are considered luxury items now. They're not just considered something that, someone needs, or they're not considered medical, they're considered luxury. And so you can make some of those changes and design it in a way that's going to make your home more valuable, even if you do end up putting it on the market years down the road. So, questions to consider when you're thinking about modifying your home. Who's living in your home? Sometimes it's not just you. Sometimes there's other people. Sometimes there's grandkids. Sometimes there's kids. Sometimes there's, a loved one or maybe it's just a random person who's paying rent with you. But considering how you're setting up that home will involve then you as well as other people. And so that will impact your decision on to what extent and what modifications you might make. If you're having any functional challenges, things, like pain points, things that are hard for you to do in your home or are getting harder, or things that you're starting to avoid doing because you just don't feel like dealing with the hassle, those are usually indications that maybe that is a point in your home that you can make changes. And then considering how long are you going to stay in your home? So are you thinking, I just want to be here for 3 more years and then, or are you thinking, this is the place I want to be in forever? That's going to impact the decisions that you make on how you're going to modify your home. Then you're considering your lifestyle, your routine, the things that you are doing now, and the things that you want to be able to do. That's important to consider as well. And of course, your budget. So those are all good considerations to really help guide you and even someone who's you're consulting with on your needs. So home features that you can modify, or things to consider in your home that may benefit from a little bit of modification or change, could be lighting, the flooring. So when you think about flooring, you're thinking about the surface. Is it slippery? Is it hard? Is it rough? The durability. Sometimes if you have extra equipment that you use, such as a wheelchair or a Hoyer lift, then you need stronger, more durable flooring, as well as smoother flooring, and the weight bearing for that. You want to consider glare. So that is, your window coverings, but also your flooring. Sometimes glare issues can result in a higher risk for falls, believe it or not, because it is a visual impediment to you being able to see your environment clearly. So obviously, yeah.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but we'll have a chance at the end to, I have an idea about flooring.
Oh, sure. Go ahead and
Okay.
share.
Well, my doctor said, and other people have said, get rid of all rugs. That you can trip on them. I even have mats at home that I'm questioning that. I've slipped a little bit.
Yep.
Even if they're like this rug. But if you can't walk like with your feet up in the air, just get rid of them, especially stairs,
Yes.
which is heartbreaking. I don't want to get rid of my rugs or my stairs, but might have to.
Unless it's permanently affixed, it is hard. I mean, you can try to tape them down, and I've made all of the recommendations, and sometimes people are very attached to those things, but ultimately the best result is to remove those non-permanent rugs and mats. That's the ideal situation, because either it can catch on your footing, or if you use a cane or a walker, it could catch there. It could slip or move. That can happen to anyone. And so it's kind of that idea of the more risk factors that you eliminate, then the less likely you are to have any issues. Obviously, the higher the risk factor, I say it's kind of like the same idea of if you cross the street with your eyes closed, you might not get hit by a car, but if you do it 20 times, chances are you will eventually. And it's kind of that same idea of you can play your odds and it can work out well. And sometimes we tend to think that way, right? We think, well, so far so good. I've been doing it like this for 20 years. But sometimes, if you play your odds long enough, eventually something could happen. So that's a great point, is just eliminating those mats, if that's something that you're comfortable with, can really help prevent issues with tripping and falling. Good advice.
I have two other suggestions, but I could wait till the end if you want.
You can go ahead and share them now.
I
That's
don't
fine.
want- Well, all right. Only in the last 6 months did I go walking up and down stairs, like 100 of them, without holding on. At first it was hard, but now I can do it very well. I've fallen many times. Nothing's ever happened to me that I know of, but who knows? So that makes for good balance. If people don't do yoga and other things, stairs are fantastic for all kinds of exercise. I use it as aerobic and also for balance.
It's great cardio too.
Cardio, right.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, anyway, I wanted to share that with people because I don't know, a lot of people think, oh, it's so hard going up, but it won't be if you just do it.
Yeah.
Do it a lot.
That's right. Strengthening is huge. I will say that if you feel like you're not very confident, I would recommend, even if you just go to a physical therapist for 1 or 2 sessions and they can give you home exercise programs to do, sometimes they can pinpoint a little bit more accurately what exactly it is that's going on, that's making you feel like your balance or your strength is not what it should be. So walking is good, but it's a general exercise, and maybe you need something to strengthen your quads or your dorsiflexors, or yes, your something very specific, or maybe it's your balance reaction time. Right. And so they can give you exercises that will just focus very pointedly on those specific issues that will help make the stairs and all the general movement easier too.
The last thing I wanted to say was that was I going to say? I was walking up a canyon recently. The next day, well, I saw this woman who was 3 times bigger than I am. Okay, I'm not considered to be fat. She was fat, really huge. And I said, "You're having a much easier time walking up." It's my sneakers. They're the best in the world. And I just read in several magazines, Hoka sneakers are much better than New Balance. That's what I used for years. They are nothing compared to these. And if you're interested in getting price things for cheap too, at REI Co-op, right down in Conshohocken on Ridge Avenue, November 11th, they begin an enormous sale. These cost $150. You could get them maybe for $50 or $70.
Wow.
So it's the Hoka. There's nothing like this. You feel like you're walking on air.
Well, that's good advice too, is solid footwear.
And all my friends get tired during the day. I never do. Well, I never did even before I wore these.
Because
But
you kept
one
active.
of the things is wearing really great shoes.
Mhm. And it's better for balance too.
So if anyone's interested, see me about the address or anything like that.
There you go. So other home features to consider would be your thresholds, entering into your home, entering through other rooms, what those look like. Are they visible? Are they high? Are they low? Can they be changed or modified? Your bathrooms, those are always a big topic of discussion because a lot of functional challenges happen there. Things become more difficult when you're in the bathroom, as well as the heights. So you want to consider the heights of your windows, your shelves, your countertops, your storage. When you're reaching up for things, believe it or not, that's one of the hardest things to do as your balance is changing. And we often, I would say 95% of falls happen backwards, and probably 95% of people are afraid of falling forward. So what happens is most people tend to compensate by leaning backwards because they don't want to fall forwards. And most falls actually happen backwards. So when you're leaning forward, you can control your fall and your balance a lot better because you have your toes, your feet move in this direction. We can flex, we can react. When you lean backwards, your heels don't do a lot to help adjust your balance. And so a lot of times people will end up falling backwards. So that's something to be aware of. If you feel like you're falling forward and you tend to lean on your heels, chances are you're going to be at a high risk for falls in the future. Again, doing some exercises can help you correct that because a lot of times all it is teaching your body to be more comfortable leaning forward and working on those reactions. That's all it is. So by just doing some general exercises and practice in leaning forward, your body can reacclimate to that and feel more comfortable in those positions that will give you better balance. Decluttering is also big, especially if you're noticing some changes in your vision. Making sure that you know where everything is makes life easier. But it also is easier to move around your house when you can declutter the home. You know, even like talking about the throw rugs and removing throw rugs as well, just kind of cleaning up the spaces a little bit more. There's also a lot of automatic safety features like keyless entries and, like we said, motion censored lights. You can get things to monitor and turn off your ovens automatically. You can get the little cameras at the door. All of these things that can kind of make life easier for you, and not make your home feel different, really. And then considering just the overall floor plan, how your furniture is laid out, the width of your hallways, and how you're using your spaces so that they're used more effectively, and considering your outdoor spaces. Are they friendly for all weather environments? And how easy or difficult is it to get in and out of your home?
I have a question.
Yeah.
You don't have one item talk about the kitchen.
About the kitchen specifically?
Yeah.
I don't have a specific one talking about the kitchen, but if you grab my card on the way out, I can give you a couple of tips on that as well.
Okay.
I do have a couple of, tips and suggestions. Here's a list, and then we'll go over a couple of them specifically in the next slide. So ideas for just managing your household responsibilities: stick vacuums, robot vacuums. When you're using a heavy vacuum, there's a lot of weight shifting, a lot of balance changes, a lot of change in your center of gravity, and then you're kind of carrying, so it can create back issues as well. Stick vacuums are lightweight. You don't have to plug them into a wall, so you're not going to get tangled up in cords. They're a lot easier to use. I love them. I have one. I think most people are moving in that direction, but it's just a great and easy solution for keeping your house clean without having to be entangled in cords, worrying about backaches, or balance issues as well. You can get some electric tools for scrubbing and cleaning that will reduce some of the strain or repetition on your joints. So if you're having achy joints, and some of those movements for scrubbing and cleaning can be painful or uncomfortable for you, looking into some of those options for electric home scrubbing solutions are really helpful for that. You can do some of for your shower or your kitchen suction cup, wall mounted dispensers for things. So if you have arthritis and you feel like your grip strength is weak and you're struggling with caps and squeezing, there are some solutions for that where you can just attach it to your wall, and all you need to do is just push and you get the product out that way. So there's not a lot of strain, squeezing, or tension on your joints that may be achy or feeling a little bit weaker because of arthritis or some sort of muscular changes. Rolling laundry baskets are great solutions too. One, because you can use them to stabilize. Even going down the steps, you can use them as kind of like a cane as you walk down the steps, one step at a time, by holding onto that handle. Or you can pull them behind you, and again, you're reducing those changes to your own balance and your own center of gravity by not having to lift another heavy object. So it helps to keep your balance stable as you're using it.
May I ask? You're talking about a laundry rolling basket?
Yeah, you
I
can.
have no idea what it looks like.
I think
Where
yes,
you
I have a
can get
picture
it.
of it. I'll show you in the
Okay.
next slide. Yeah. So then, changing light bulbs, there's extension tools for things like that. For gardening, same thing. You can get long-handled weed pullers instead of having to get down on your hands and knees, and again, making life a little bit more difficult. Then for transfers. Transfers are any movement where you're moving from one place to another. So if you are transferring from a couch or transferring from a shower, you're moving from one space to another. That's what we call a transfer. So thinking about bed transfers, transferring in and out of bed or a couch, you can get some firmer supports to put underneath to help firm up a space if you have an older or a soft surface that you're having trouble getting out of or getting up from. There are, for cars, you can get some additional temporary handles that you can put into the side of the car when you open the door. And it goes into the hinge to help push yourself out of a chair. There's also some seat cushions that can help with that, and I'll show you a picture of that in the next slide as well. There are now some neat adjustable bed rails that can actually fold down, so if you don't need it or want it, or it gets in the way of repositioning, you can fold it down, but you can also fold it up to help you turn or assist you in getting out of bed as well. And then raised toilet seats, of course. You can get the actual toilet that's a higher height. Everyone knows the Comfort Height toilet. There's actually, Kohler actually makes a toilet that's even higher than the Comfort Height now. I cannot remember what it's called, but I know that it's Kohler who designed it. And then for home safety solutions, there are shower seats now that you can hang over a grab bar. So instead of having a permanent shower seat installed or something that takes up a little bit more floor space, if you have a smaller shower space, you can actually hang a seat. It hangs from the grab bar itself. And it's something you can easily take off, put on when you need it. Those are great solutions when you have like a hip fracture or a knee injury, and you may need a temporary solution. You don't want to stand in your shower yet because you don't feel comfortable or you're not able to put much weight on a leg for a certain reason, but you might not necessarily want a permanent solution that you're going to be stuck with down the road. So I will, again, I have pictures in the next slide, but I just wanted to go over some list of ideas. Hanging shoe organizers are great because, again, you're standing, you're maintaining your center of gravity, and you're able to easily access and see your shoe selections. So it makes it easier for you versus digging around on the floor like we all tend to do, trying to find one shoe that matches another somewhere in the corner of your closet. It keeps them together and organized. We talked about motion censored lights that turn on as you're moving down the hall or up the stairs. There is a swing clear door hinge. If you need a wider door space, but you don't want to have a contractor come in to widen your door, you can widen it by an additional 2 inches by installing this hinge to your door. And I'm going to show you what it looks like again in the next slide. As well as, there's some tools that, did you raise your hand? No, okay. There's some tools for opening and closing doors as well to make it easier for you if that's a challenge. Sometimes that's specifically a challenge when you're carrying bags or you're using a walker or you have your hands tied up with something else. And then also there are grab bars that are dual purpose. You can get towel bars that are also ADA grab bars. You can get toilet paper holders that are also a grab bar support. So it kind of has a twofold purpose, and you're not just installing a grab bar. It got dual function. So here is a couple pictures. You can see here in the first one we have the grab bar that's also a toilet paper holder to give a little bit more support. There's different designs, different styles, different finishes, of course, but you get the idea. The second one, does anyone know what that is?
It's in your car.
Yes.
Get in and out of your car.
Mm-hmm. So you rotate. So when you're sitting, you can sit, onto the seat and then rotate into the car, rotate out of the car. Just makes it a little bit easier to move. And when you're sitting on it, no one even knows you're on it. This one here is the door hinge that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. So it's an easy swing door hinge. And as you can see, most doors, they come to here and they don't fully swing open. This one actually fully swings opened so that you don't have the space of the door inside the frame. It opens it up and gives you that additional 2 inches. 2 inches doesn't sound like a lot, but when your doorway is already tight because of, whatever the reason is, if you have a narrow, sometimes the bathrooms in an ensuite are really small and narrow, that 2 inches can make a really big difference. And it's just as simple as replacing the hinges on your door versus opening up an entire door frame. And then this is like the rolling laundry baskets that I was talking about, so to give you a better visual.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So this picture over here is talking about those extra supports that you can use to build up a couch or a mattress and make it a little bit more firm so that it's easier to transfer out of. A good support shouldn't be visible. It should just kind of take away that sagginess that you might have in your cushions. Here are some motion censored lights for the stairway, and like I was saying, you can get these on Amazon. You can probably get these at like a hardware store as well, and they are not required to be hardwired. A lot of times they're battery operated, so you can just attach them very simply and remove them as needed. Sometimes people will put them underneath cabinets as well, or maybe outside your door stoop is a little bit challenging, or you might have an uneven stair and you want to put something there as well. There are outdoor lights that you can use that work the same way. Here's the stick vacuum, that lightweight, there's no cord involved, super easy to use when you're vacuuming and really great for your balance. If you're trying to avoid hiring a cleaner, that's probably a good solution. And then there's different types, but this is a shower seat. As you can see, you hook it onto the grab bar in the shower and you can pull it off when you choose. So a nice, easy solution that takes up a little less space than most shower chairs if you're crunched for space.
I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I probably wasn't listening well to the couch. We cannot pull up our pillows. I mean, it's all attached, and yet it's sinking.
It's sewn in, you mean?
Yeah.
A little bit. That is another challenge. There's not a lot you could do maybe for the cushion itself other than get it restuffed. But you can get like those leg lifters that you might use for a bed or a couch, depending on what the legs of your couch look like, and you can elevate it that way 2 inches, 4 inches, 6 inches, and get it a little bit higher, which would also help with making it easier to get in and out of the couch.
No, that's not the problem. It's when you're sitting there, it's just not hard enough. Most couches are poorly made and you sink into it.
Yeah, so what I was saying is just that you might not be able to make it as firm as you want unless you restuff it. But if the issue is that you sink into the cushions and you can't get out of them, sometimes even still making that couch a little bit higher can help, even though the cushion itself will still be soft. Anytime you have a height, an increased height makes it a little bit easier. The next picture I have here is just a picture of a kitchen, but this kitchen has a lot of smart design and ergonomical design to it. So as you can see, it looks pretty nice, and you wouldn't necessarily look at it and think this kitchen is handicap accessible or that it has any special features to it. But when you can look at it here, and I can kind of go over a few of the features. You have, I don't know, can you guys see this picture? Okay, or should I go back to the other one? I can point them out here. You have open spaces here, so you could sit down or you could use a wheelchair, and they close into cabinets, so when you're not using those spaces underneath the stove or the sink, you won't be able to see that there's openings there. You have lower oven surfaces and microwave surfaces, and they pull, so it's a little bit easier to access without having to reach up or hold heavy things. If you have shoulder issues, if you have joint problems, if you have weakness or balance issues, this is helpful for all of those factors. You can see there's some varying height differences as well in the countertop spaces. That's usually helpful to consider because it gives you a variety of ways to use your kitchen. You can sit down, you can stand up, and you can still work in that spaces, cutting up vegetables or preparing foods that way. Over here, you have a oven where the doors open to the side, and that again allows you don't have to bend over. You can have nice close access to that oven space, which makes it a lot easier to get things in and out of versus the doors that come down and then you're kind of leaning over to the side, and that can be hard to do with managing heavy objects. Sometimes you can pull out, some drawers here, and we have what we call drop zones. So instead of actually having a drawer in here, it might be a hidden cutting board or like a wooden cutting board that you can also set a casserole dish on when you bring it out from the oven, nice and hot, so you don't have to carry it right away. Let's see, the floor surface is really smooth. As you can see, there's a lot of different types of lighting here. So you have lighting for atmosphere, you have task lighting, which is underneath the cabinets here. So for someone with low vision, it makes it easier to see what you're doing because those lights are made specifically for working on tasks nice and close, they're nice and bright. And then you may have some lighting that you can dim or change the brightness of to reduce glare issues and things like that. So you have all different types of lighting here in the cabinets and the shelves. Overhead, you have your pendulum lights. You can also add, touch censored fixtures, things where the sink turns on by just, a touch, which makes it easier to manage, or motion censored, faucets as well. Induction stoves are really great. The stove tops, I don't know if you guys know what an induction stove is, but it basically works off of magnetic waves, and so it interacts with the pan directly. But essentially what it means is that it's not hot to touch. And so if you are sitting or you need to sit and work at a stovetop, your arm might be lower and you are going to have chances of burning as you're reaching to that far burner. In an induction oven, you can't really burn yourself because the actual surface doesn't get hot. It just heats the pan itself. So it's a great safety feature. And I don't know if you can see here, it's sort of lit up, but there are controls in the front of the stove versus off to the side or in the back. And that would be a safety feature as well. So you don't have to reach over your burners to turn them on or control them. Your controls are right in the front here. Any questions or thoughts about?
I have a question.
Yeah.
In general, is the top of the oven or counter lower than the standard? Are they
This one?
yeah, all of them?
So sometimes
Do you
what
have to modify the current standard height, 3 foot high, in
so
order to reach that
no, it would
new
depend.
height?
Yeah,
is that
there-
new height?
There is no set way to do something like this. And that's where it would be helpful sometimes to consult with someone because it will really depend on you. When I go out and I'm working with someone, I will take measurements on their body specifically.
Okay.
And then if they have, a spouse, then we talk about varying heights and changing things to fit both their spouse and them. So that they might have, again, 2 different countertop heights, and we might talk about what height the microwave goes at to fit both of their needs. And so that's where having an occupational therapist, we're going to measure, floor to elbow height, floor to knee. We're going to measure what your seating height is, how you operate, but then also thinking about you and your spouse, and do you have rheumatoid arthritis, or do you have neuropathy, and all of those things will play into how you consider what your setup would be. These are just some options or clever ways to design so that it looks very appealing, and it's kind of hidden safety features that you can incorporate when you're doing a renovation.
Okay. With this picture, it's looks like lower everything.
No, not everything is lower. Yeah,
Okay.
this is more of a standard height, but you
Okay.
have some variation.
That's I was,
And sometimes you can do like a standard height and then either a dropped height off of the back or a higher height so that you can maybe sit here or stand here and work more easily. And then have a standard height in the front. So you can do all different types of,
okay, how about the refrigerator? Any change? If
any
you
change
use
in the refrigerator.
Yeah.
The refrigerator is pretty standard other than the
Right.
freezers below.
But for the future.
Oh, yeah.
Then would that be something effect refrigerator? Or you can just keep your old refrigerator in general? I mean, just
Yeah, so you could do, there are some organizational tricks that you can use in your refrigerator, your standard refrigerator. And there are some alternate layouts that you can get for refrigerator heights and sizes and the way that they're laid out as well. A lot of times the Europeans have gotten very clever with their appliances and improving the function, whereas American appliances, most of them are pretty standard, so they're hard to change. But you know, there are some really neat designs that European brands have come up with as well.
Okay.
Any other thought? Yeah.
As far as the refrigerator is concerned, I have a refrigerator where the refrigerator's on the top and the freezer's on the bottom. But I didn't want, most of the refrigerators I saw were double doors, and I did not want that. It took me a while, but I finally found one that was a single door, just like a regular refrigerator, with the refrigerator on the top and the freezer on the bottom, freezer drawer on the bottom. I like it a lot better, and I hadn't had any issues with movement or anything when I did it.
Yeah.
But it just was easier to look the things I wanted to be right at eye level than to be
And a lot of that's preference.
bending down
Yeah.
with the freezer on top. So
Yeah.
that was my preference. But like I said, trying to find one with just a regular door took a little bit longer.
So yeah, sometimes depending on what you're looking
kind is
for.
it? Do you mind?
The brand.
Yeah, I don't believe she asked me that.
Because they just don't make good
Normally
refrigerators.
I know.
Westinghouse?
No, it's not Westinghouse, and it's not Frigidaire.
GE?
No, it's not GE. Oh gosh, I don't believe it.
May I call you to find out?
Yes.
It's very hard to
I'll
find.
give it to you when this is done.
Thank
I'll give you
you.
my number.
Thank you.
I can't believe it. As soon as she asked me that.
You would have known it any other time,
Any
right?
other time, right? Any other time.
What was I going to, the other thing you want to consider with your refrigerator doors is probably, so how wide your space is here. So sometimes the dual doors are better if you have a narrower, like a galley kitchen, where, you know, you have like these narrow hallways, and so opening a long, wide door might limit your ability to get through when the door is open, whereas if you have something, you know, the dual open, it might be easier to get through in those narrower spaces. But if your refrigerator is in a corner and that door opens toward the wall, it might make sense to have a larger, single door that swings open. So it really depends also on the layout of your kitchen and the spaces that you have as to what you might consider, you know, when you think about your appliances. So that is mostly all I have. If you guys have any interest or want more information regarding, you know, functional assessment for your home, tricks and tips, or an area that you might be having some issues with that you want to kind of problem solve in your home, if you are going through a renovation and want a consultation to talk about maybe ways that you could be a little bit smarter maybe in that renovation so that it lasts you for a long time, I'm always happy to help. My contact information's here. I have cards and brochures in the back as well. But that is all. Thank you guys for coming out and for participating.
Thank you.
Does anyone
Yeah.
have anything else that they wanted to share?
I have a question about lifts. If you cannot use the stairway, so what kind of things? Use it like single elevator, or which one is better, or got the lift from the step?
It would really depend, one, on your budget, and two, on
Say no budget.
No budget. It depends also on the space and the layout of the stairs. So how many stairs you have, if you have, when you talk about installing an elevator, that can be tricky. So it really depends on the space that you have. So we would be looking at the floor plan itself. A lot of times what you want to see is you want to see like a pantry or a closet with another pantry or closet above it, so that you can tear out that space and just have like a nice clean opening for an install of an elevator that way. If it's just a couple steps, sometimes you'll do just a small vertical lift for the install. So let's say you have 4 steps to enter your home. Then you might do like a vertical lift where it's just an open space, but it kind of lifts up for you. It's not a true enclosed elevator though.
But there's an outdoor lift available too.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
There's indoor and outdoor. And then, depending on the way that your stairs are laid out, if
Sure,
there's
sure.
a
But there's available things.
yes, yep, or you can have the stair lift where you kind of or ride it up
Mm-hmm.
on a seat. Those are all possible options. And again, sometimes, if financial is definitely consideration, but also sometimes the way that it's laid out, the stairway itself and the space is also a consideration for what makes the most sense. For outdoor spaces, you can also do ramps. But if you have
for
more than
wheelchair.
3 or
Right.
4 stairs, you may be looking at some sort of lift, because it is surprising how long a ramp needs to be for just a couple feet of elevation.
Because there's
And sometimes,
requirements.
if your yard is smaller, or there's just too many stairs, it might not make sense to do a ramp in that case. It might be too long.
Right.
Yeah, or too steep. If you don't make it long enough, it'll be a really steep ramp, which is also dangerous. Yeah.
I'm always surprised in the chats that I hear in other places about when you become a senior citizen, everybody's afraid of falling. There's a great class right here at the Senior Center by a lady named Joanne Fagerstrom. She does classes on bone density and balance. Absolutely great classes. I took them for years, and I'll go back again when it's a time that I can get there. But I started going to them because I went to a place to do Pilates. They rejected me because my balance was so bad. So I found this class, I began going, and they concentrate on the bone density too, because as we know, our bones need help as we get older. My last DEXA scan, the doctor sent me a letter afterwards. She was astonished. My bone density had improved 9%.
Wow.
From doing the exercises
Wow.
from this class, which I still do all the time at home. But I don't take anything for it, so it's not like I had a drug
Yeah.
thingy or something. But I think the class is worth looking into here. And you can go even just once if you want. She has a one-time
Yeah, thank you.
$15 or something that you pay, but it's well worth going. And you will get down on the floor so that you learn how to get up
Yeah.
if you are down on the floor.
What a great solution
Thank
too,
you.
because
It's
a lot of
totally
times
great.
the
Totally great.
medications that they have
Yeah.
for osteoporosis have other side effects, especially if you're on them for the
Yeah.
long run. So if you can do something as simple as just exercising to improve your bone density, that's a great
Yeah.
solution.
This lady who is a physical therapist that does the
Mhm.
classes, she started them because she had osteoporosis and started looking into what you can do for yourself with that.
wow.
She no longer has osteoporosis.
Wow.
So
That's,
it's really a very fine
yeah.
class, and it's a cheap solution, and everybody looks like us, there's
Yeah.
20-year-olds there. So it's a very nice.
It's a really healthy solution.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely worth considering. Well, that is all I have for you guys for today. Thank you guys for participating. As we said, there is pastries and coffee on your way out, so please take advantage of that.
Thank you.